I shouldn't admit this, but the first time I noticed her wasn't when she spoke to me, it was when she didn't. She stood in the doorway of her apartment, head lowered, sliding her keys into the lock with a kind of quiet that pulled at me. I was carrying a bag of groceries for my friend, heading upstairs, but I slowed down without realizing it. She didn't glance my way. Just the click of metal against metal, her shoulders tense, her hair loose like she hadn't meant to leave the house but had anyway. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've been taking the long way home. Past her door. Past that same patch of faded paint on the frame, past the scent of her gardenias that somehow clings to the hallway air. It sounds ridiculous, but I swear the whole corridor feels different when she's inside, like the silence waits for her. Her name is Elena. She's… I don't know. Mid-40s, maybe? There's something about the way she carries herself, not young, not careless, but not closed off either. As if she's been through things and doesn't want to explain them to anyone. My friend told me once, casually, "That's just Elena, my mom's neighbor. Keeps to herself." But I couldn't. I started finding reasons. Bringing over tools to help my friend fix his leaking faucet, offering to carry boxes upstairs, even stopping by when I knew I didn't need to. Always passing her door. Always hoping for her voice. And then today, she gave it to me. I just walked by again, too slow, too obvious, when her door cracked open. She leaned against the frame, arms folded loosely, eyes catching mine before I could pretend to be somewhere else. "You keep walking past my door," she said. Not accusing, not amused. Just steady. My chest tightened. I could have lied. Said I was visiting my friend, or lost, or anything. But instead I heard myself say it, too quickly, too bare. "Only to hear your voice." The air between us stilled. She tilted her head the slightest bit, as though weighing whether I meant it or whether I even knew what I just confessed. Her lips parted like she might answer, but she didn't. Instead, she opened her door wider, just enough for the faint smell of coffee and old books to reach me. My eyes darted inside, a lamp burning low, a sweater tossed over the arm of the couch, the kind of life you don't show everyone. "You don't even know me," she murmured. I stepped closer without meaning to. "Maybe that's why I can't stop trying to." A silence stretched. Not the awkward kind. The heavy kind, the kind where something is about to happen but neither person knows who will cross first. I caught the small shift of her fingers against her arm, as though she wanted to uncross them, maybe reach out, maybe not. Her gaze dropped to the floor, then back to me, sharper now, like she just remembered something she shouldn't forget. "You should go," she whispered. But her hand stayed on the door, not closing it. And I didn't move. Her voice had said go, but her hand still rested on the doorframe like it wasn't finished with me. I should have turned away, forced a grin, made some excuse about heading upstairs to see my friend. That would have been the smart thing. But I didn't. I kept my eyes on the half-open doorway, the warm light spilling out, the faint music coming from an old stereo inside. She sighed softly, almost to herself, and stepped back just enough. "Fine," she said, not looking directly at me. "If you're going to keep wandering the hallway, you might as well come in. At least once." It wasn't an invitation. More like a boundary she expected me to respect. Still, I crossed it. Inside, her apartment felt lived in. Not polished, not staged. A mug with lipstick on the rim sat on the coffee table, next to a half-read book. A cardigan slouched over the arm of the couch. The air smelled faintly of vanilla and something sharper, wine maybe. I tried not to stare at her as she closed the door, but my eyes betrayed me, the way she pushed her hair back with one distracted hand, the lines at the corner of her eyes that somehow made her more beautiful. "You really shouldn't," she said after a pause, settling onto the edge of the couch, her voice softer now. "I'm old enough to know better." I stood there, hands in my pockets, feeling 20 and out of my depth. "Know better than what?" Her laugh was short, tired. "Than letting someone like you sit in my living room." Something in my chest tightened. Someone like me? Yump, she said, finally looking at me. Her gaze held longer than I expected. Uncomplicated. Curious about things you don't understand yet. I swallowed hard, trying to breathe past the weight of her words. She wasn't wrong. I didn't understand her, but I wanted to. I sat down across from her, too close maybe, the couch cushion dipping under my weight. I like talking to you. Even if it's only in the hallway. Her lips curved, not quite a smile. More like regret flickering across her face. Talking is dangerous too. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The stereo hummed low in the background, some old jazz track that fit the way the room seemed suspended in time. I noticed her fingers tracing the rim of her mug, circling it without purpose. My hand twitched against my leg, wanting to bridge the small space but not daring. Finally, she whispered, almost as if it surprised her too, "Stay a little longer." The air thickened. My heart stumbled in my chest. She leaned forward, her hand brushing my arm just lightly enough to make it impossible to ignore. And I almost told her the truth then, that I'd been waiting for this, that I'd thought of nothing else, but the words caught in my throat, burning, unspoken. She didn't move her hand right away. That faint touch on my arm lingered, quiet but electric, and I could feel my whole body tightening against it. I wanted more. I wanted too much. But then she pulled back, curling her fingers around her mug like nothing had happened. "You should drink something," she murmured, her tone low, steady, but not steady enough. "I'm fine," I said, though my throat was dry. I meant to shift the conversation, give her space, but my eyes betrayed me again. They caught the small scar on her wrist, a pale line half hidden under her sleeve. I wanted to ask about her, but I knew that would unravel more than either of us was ready for. So instead I asked, "Do you ever get lonely here?" The question slipped out too honest, too raw. Her lips parted, and she let out the softest sound, not a laugh, not a sigh, but something between. "That's a dangerous question." "Why?" I leaned in before I could stop myself. "Because it's the kind I might actually answer." We were too close now. I could smell her perfume, faint and floral, mingled with the wine. My knee almost brushed hers. The air between us felt thinner, like any wrong word would shatter it. And then, the sharp buzz of her phone on the table. We both flinched. She reached for it quickly, face turning away as the screen lit up. I caught just enough, a man's name, not mine. She silenced it without answering. The motion was too fast, too careful. Something twisted in me. Jealousy? Maybe. But more than that, the realization that she wasn't as untouched by the world as she seemed to me in this room. She had connections, stories, pieces I didn't know. "You should probably," I started, but the words stuck. "Pick up." Her eyes found mine, firm now. "Not tonight." That should have ended it. I should have stood, made an excuse, left her to her shadows and unanswered calls. Instead, I leaned back against the couch, pretending calm, but my pulse was wild. "You make it hard to stay away," I admitted before I could reel it in. Her breath caught, just barely audible, but there. And then, like the universe wanted to test us, a knock rattled faintly against her door. We both froze. Her eyes widened, and in that instant, something unspoken flashed between us. Panic, fear, maybe the acknowledgement of exactly how precarious this was. The knock didn't come again. Silence spread, thicker than before. She pressed a hand to her temple, shook her head lightly, then whispered, "Don't say anything." I didn't. I couldn't. But the truth sat between us anyway, humming louder than the stereo, louder than the knock. When her hand brushed mine again, this time deliberate, I knew we were closer to the line than either of us could pretend. The silence after that knock stayed in the room like smoke. Neither of us moved, either of us spoke. Only the faint tick of the clock on her wall filled the air, each second too loud, each one daring us to say something. Finally I whispered, "Does it always feel like this?" Her head turned, eyes narrowing a fraction. "Like what?" Like the air's too heavy to breathe unless you. I stopped. The rest felt too dangerous. Her lips pressed together, but she didn't look away. You shouldn't say things like that. Why not? My voice came out sharper than I meant. Because it's true? Her shoulders stiffened. For a moment, I thought she'd tell me to leave. But instead, she set her mug down, carefully, as if buying time. Then she leaned forward, elbows on her knees, and said, You're too young to understand what you're doing. I know what I'm doing. No, she whispered, her eyes flicking over my face like she was memorizing it against her will. You think you do? But you don't see what this would cost. Her words cut, but not enough to make me pull back. Maybe I don't care what it costs. That landed. Her breath caught, and she looked away quickly, her fingers twisting together in her lap. Vulnerability slipped through the cracks she tried to hold shut. I've made mistakes before, she said quietly. Ones that started small. A moment, a word, a hand held too long. And then suddenly, she shook her head. It takes years to forgive yourself for something you can't undo. Her voice broke there, barely audible, but enough to make my chest ache. I wanted to ask her what mistake, who, when, but the pain in her tone told me not to. I don't want to be your mistake, I said instead. That made her look at me again, fully, her eyes wet and unflinching. The air tightened between us, sharper than before. You make it sound so simple, she whispered. Because it feels simple. I shot back. Here. Now. With you. Her hand moved before her words did, sliding closer to mine on the couch cushion, hesitating, then stopping an inch away. That single inch felt like the thinnest wall in the world. Do you even hear yourself? She asked, her voice trembling now. Do you know what you're asking? I leaned forward, closer than I'd ever dared, my breath nearly brushing her cheek. I'm asking you to stop pretending you don't feel it too. The stereo hummed softly in the background, a song we weren't listening to. Her eyes flickered from my mouth back to my eyes, torn, searching. She didn't answer. She just stared at me, caught in that single inch of space, the silence between us heavier than anything I'd ever known. And then she whispered the words that changed everything. What if I do? Her words, what if I do? Still hung in the air when the silence cracked. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed again. Not just once this time, but in a steady rhythm, insistently. She flinched and reached for it, then froze when she saw the name glowing on the screen. I caught it too. My stomach twisted. It was my friend's mom. For a second, the room spun. I'd known Elena was her neighbor, but I hadn't put it together, how close they actually were, how intertwined their lives might be. This wasn't just dangerous, it was impossible. Her hand hovered over the phone, trembling slightly before she turned it face down with a soft thud. You knew? I asked, my voice rough. Her gaze shot to mine. Knew what? That she's calling you. My throat tightened. That she's your friend. My friend's mom. You knew this whole time. Her expression softened into something I didn't expect, not guilt, not fear, but weariness. Of course I knew. Do you think I wouldn't recognize who you are? Who you belong to? The words hit harder than I wanted them to. Belong to. As if I were still a boy, not a man sitting here, not someone staring at her like she was the only thing in the room. I sank back against the couch, suddenly unsure. Then why let me in? Her jaw tightened. Because you wouldn't stop circling. Because every time I opened that door, you were there, pretending you weren't waiting for me. And because... She broke off, pressing her fingers to her temple. Because I wanted to know if I'd imagined it. This pull. This madness. Hearing her say it made my chest ache. It wasn't just me. But it also meant she'd been holding back more than I realized. So what now? I asked, my voice low. Do we pretend this never happened? She gave a hollow laugh. Can we? The stereo hummed, a trumpet note bending in the silence. She looked at me like she was deciding whether to push me away forever or pull me closer than she should. I don't want to hurt her, Elena said suddenly. Your friend's mother. She's been good to me. She trusts me. If she knew you were here, she doesn't have to know. The words spilled out before I could stop them. Too quick. Too raw. Her eyes searched mine, catching the urgency I couldn't hide. That's the problem. Secrets don't stay secrets. Not forever. I leaned in, my voice breaking. Then tell me what you want. Not what's safe, not what's right. You. She looked at me for a long, unbearable moment. Her lips parted like she might finally confess the truth, the one we'd been circling all along. And then, softly, almost as if to herself, she whispered, I don't know if I want to stop. The words hung there like a blade between us, fragile, sharp, impossible to take back. The clock ticked loud in the quiet room, but neither of us moved. I could feel every fraction of a second pressing against my chest like it might break me. I shouldn't, she whispered, finally breaking the gaze that had been holding me hostage. I shouldn't do this. I took a step closer, hands twitching as if they might reach for her but unsure if she'd let me. Do what? I asked, voice tight. This, she said, her hand brushing against mine again, fleeting, testing. You and me. Like this. I shouldn't let it happen. It's too late? I offered softly. Her eyes went wide for a moment, a flicker of surprise, then something softer, almost shy. Maybe, she admitted. I swallowed hard. The words I'd been holding, everything I wanted to say, rushed up, but I stopped myself from spilling them all. It didn't feel like the time for confessions in full sentences. It felt like this, a touch, a look, the possibility. I can wait, I said. Not for forever. I can wait as long as you need. She laughed, short, bitter, beautiful. And what if I never decide? Then I'll keep walking past your door, I said, almost a whisper. Only now, maybe you won't mind so much. The corner of her mouth twitched, the tiniest lift that almost became a smile. I could see the weight she carried, the mistakes, the guilt, the life she'd lived before me, pressing down on her shoulders. And yet, she didn't push me away. I don't know how to not care, she murmured, voice barely audible. Then don't, I said. Not tonight. Not yet. Just stay with me here like this. Let's see what happens without pretending. Her hand finally found mine, holding it firmly, almost as if she were testing gravity itself. My pulse hammered in my ears. The room felt warmer, safer, and more dangerous all at once. I shouldn't, she repeated, but this time there was something else, a softness, a surrender in the edge of her words. Maybe not, I said. But we can be careful. We can be ourselves, just for a while. Her eyes glimmered, a storm held in check, and I felt the impossibility of everything we'd been trying to contain. Desire, fear, regret, longing, all converging in that moment. Then she leaned just a little closer, enough for her hair to brush my shoulder, enough for her lips to almost meet mine. Promise me you won't rush me, she whispered. I won't, I breathed. But I won't leave either. Her fingers tightened around mine. We stayed like that, suspended in the room where boundaries blurred and everything outside ceased to matter. And in that quiet, fragile space, we didn't need to speak anymore. The decision had been made, not with grand declarations, not with perfect timing, but with hands entwined, hearts exposed, and the unspoken understanding that whatever came next, we'd face it together. The world outside her door waited. But for now, we just stayed. The hallway smelled faintly of gardenias again, the same scent that had first stopped me in my tracks weeks ago. But this time, it didn't feel like temptation or tension. It felt like home, like a place I belonged, even if just in the fragile, careful space we'd carved for ourselves. Elena opened the door a crack, looking at me with that familiar mix of caution and something softer, something that had grown between us: trust, desire, patience. She didn't say anything, just let me in, and I stepped forward. The gesture was simple, unspoken, yet it carried all the weight of our journey: the hesitation, the brushes of hands, the almost confessions, the shared silences. We sat on the couch, side by side, letting the day's shadows stretch across the room. Her fingers found mine, and for the first time, it wasn't an inch of space, a test, or a fleeting touch. It was connection. Real, fragile, human. "I still can't believe this," she murmured. "That yeah?" I interrupted softly, a smile tugging at my lips. "That we're here." She laughed, light, without the edges of worry or fear. I thought I'd regret it. Every choice I've made. But not this one." "Neither do I," I said. My thumb brushed hers, a quiet promise more than a word could carry. "We've been careful. We've felt everything without rushing. And maybe that's why it feels right." She tilted her head toward me, and I caught the briefest sparkle in her eyes, the recognition that two flawed people had found each other, despite the odds, despite the world outside the door. For the first time, I realized something. Desire alone doesn't make a connection. Vulnerability does. Trust does. Small gestures that say, "I see you. I wait for you. I won't let go." That had been the story all along, ours, unfolding quietly, imperfectly, beautifully. We leaned back, letting silence fill the room, and in that quiet, the tension dissolved. Not erased, but transformed into something steady, tangible, warm. A beginning, not an ending, and the knowledge that what mattered wasn't rushing to the next moment, it was being present in the one we had. The world outside could wait. Work, errands, social obligations, they existed, but none of it mattered as much as this, two hearts, raw and human, learning to hold space for each other. And when Elena finally rested her head on my shoulder, sighing softly, I realized we had crossed a line neither of us had dared name. Not recklessly. Not with fantasy or illusion. But with truth. We didn't need words anymore. Our story wasn't perfect, and maybe it never would be. But it was ours. And maybe that's the thing about love, about connection. It isn't about rules, ages, timing, or fear. It's about showing up. Every day, every moment, and letting someone see you, really see you, and staying anyway. So here we are. And for the first time, I don't want to walk past her door. I want to stay. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?